Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira Lawyers. We are starting one more live stream. Today is Wednesday, September the 10th, 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. And as usual, you can post topics of your interest. It doesn't need to be just legal stuff. Anything you are interested to discuss about either Brazil or Portugal is welcome. So enter your topics of interest right now in the chat window so we can get started. And we also going to take a look at the news. Let's see what's going on in Brazil. And, this is the topic of the week. It's all about former President Bolsonaro judgment or trial by the Supreme Court. And today there is a Minister Fux. That's the one. I hope the name it doesn't sound too weird, right? But his name is Fux, and that's the one you see over here. Let's see if we can take a look. Yeah, I think it's showing just fine. So Minister Luis Fux, like he's the one who's kind of a hope, like for President Bolsonaro. He has been more technical in terms of his analysis. And that's kind of his, voting background for today. Like he's reviewing the whole case and the facts from a very technical perspective. And he's also addressing, right, the need for the Brazilian Supreme Court to remain outside of politics. Okay, it's a big hope for former President Bolsonaro, and naturally, people from the right side of the aisle. So that's it for today. It's all about former President Bolsonaro trial. And as you can see, all the news that you see are revolving the Brazilian Supreme Court trial of President Bolsonaro. All right, let's go back. And it looks like we have some friends in the house. Christopher, olá, salude desde Ecuador, Dr. Oliveira. Good to see you, Christopher. Travel Jones, already here, Travel Jones. Boa tarde, tudo bem? Good to see you back, Travel Jones, and good to meet you. Not sure if we say in person, right? But good to see you again, all right? Jeannie Lepage, boa tarde. Good to see you again, Jeannie. Matt Gaines, good day. Matt and Adrian Gaines are on Missouri, USA. Welcome, Adrian and Matt. Good to see you both. All right, Travel Jones, forgive me. I did chuckle a bit at the name, Lo. All right. Good to see you here, Jones. Christopher, set to hear about the Ascensor da Glória derailment. As anyone mentioned, why the derailment happened? Yes, I mean they are still investigating, right? But it looks like it was. And by the way, for those of you who don't know about this tragedy, it was a we call it in Portuguese bondinho, right? Which is like a what is the translation for bondinho? Right, it is like a kind of a small bus, but it has like a connection to electricity on top. And it was actually in Portugal that the strategy happened. This bondinho was actually, coming from the top of the hills in Lisbon, and it was going, through its route to the base of the hill. And it looks like, there was a mechanical failure with the brakes, right? So basically, this bondinho started to, gain speed and eventually started to, crash against the walls and hitting people, hitting cars on its way. It was a tragedy and many lives lost, unfortunately, all right? But the investigations are going on, Christopher, and as we speak, it looks like it was like mechanical failure, right? This area is very cramped, and it was very unfortunate for sure. All right, break it down, shake it down. Boa tarde. How much roughly would be the legal cost in US dollars for a foreigner to purchase an off-plan condominium in Rio? Breakdown. So this is going to vary substantially, right? And just to illustrate, let's say if you're going to buy a one-bedroom apartment in Copacabana, right? If you're talking about an off-plan, right? This could be, and we're not talking about beachfront, but maybe a couple of blocks from the beach, a one apartment bedroom off plan, it could be something like 900,000 reais, okay? And if there was in Ipanema, there would most probably be something like 1.3 million reais, right? And then you can do the conversion, but we're talking, typically around 200,000 US dollars for a really nice apartment, let's say in Ipanema, okay? Copacabana is like cheaper, right, than Ipanema. They are basically, like neighboring beaches in Rio de Janeiro. And you also have a lot of, you also see a lot of activity breakdown in Barra da Tijuca, right, which is a huge area in Rio de Janeiro. And many people are choosing nowadays, to go to Barra instead of the most typical South Zone beaches, right? Whenever we talk about Copacabana, Ipanema, Leblon, right? Lagoa. We're typically talking about Zona Sul, as we say in Portuguese, or South Zone of Rio de Janeiro, right? But I would say, $200,000 for a one or even a two-bedroom apartment is going to get you, either in Ipanema, right? And if you buy something for 200 in Copacabana, it's going to get you even further, all right? All right, Tim Edwards, boa tarde. Boa tarde, team. I have a question. I have a V10 9 visa. Hold on a second. I have a V10 9 visa for a year as I bought a property in Brazil. What is the procedure to renew this visa? I am from the UK. Do I have to apply from here? So for most of the visas, team, the way it works is like this. You get a visa. Whenever there is a visa, typically the visa is going to be issued abroad, right? Like meaning outside of Brazil. And after you get the visa, you have 90 days to register with the Brazilian Federal Police. So let's say you bought a property, you got the visa, you applied for the visa, and let's say at the Brazilian consulate in Los Angeles, you got the visa, they stamped the visa on your passport. You have 90 days to enter Brazil and register this visa, right? Actually, 90 days after entering Brazil. And then once you register the visa, you no longer have an investor visa. You're going to have an investor residency, right? The visa was issued for you to enter the country as someone who would hold the residency as an investor. But after your registration with the federal police, it becomes a residency, right? It's no longer a visa. So when you renew, you're going to renew as a residency, and the renewal got to be done in Brazil. Because if you think about it, there is no longer a visa in place. There is a residency, and for you to renew a residency, you must renew while in Brazil. Okay? So that would be the correct approach for the renewal, right? And for those renewals, team, we typically use a platform made available by the Brazilian immigration, which is called Migrante Web. Nowadays, I think we have the version 2.0. It's like a software or a software as a service that you access online, and then you add like the documents, information about the prior residency. you're going to show that the applicant is still qualifying for that particular a visa, if you will, but more technically speaking, residency. And once you provided the documents, typically they are going to review those documents and application in a 45-day time window. Once they review, if everything is on point, they are going to approve. If they are not satisfied with everything that you provided, they are going to ask you. They may ask you for additional documents, or if they think that your application is hopeless. Of course, we don't want that to be the case. They could deny right off the bat, but most typically, they are going to give you a chance. Like if you're missing a few things, or some of the documents they don't think are compliant, they are going to give you an opportunity to provide a replacement. Once they are satisfied, if they are satisfied, they are going to approve the renewal. There is going to be a publishing of the approval on the Diário Oficial da União, which would be like the official Gazette of Brazil. So many people, get surprised when they see that their name and information is published online for everyone to see. But that's how it works in Brazil. And once the publishing takes place, that's when we can schedule an appointment with you to attend with the Brazilian Federal Police. During this appointment, you're going to take a new biometrics, and then you're going to get the protocol, which is a piece of paper with the information for your new RNM card, right? The RNM card typically takes a couple of months to be issued, to be printed and made available for you to pick up back at the Brazilian Federal Police. And in the meantime, you can use the protocol as proof of renewal. All right, Brazil Vibes, good to see you. Hi, Mr. Oliveira. My question is two parts. I'm trying to understand the Brazilian currency. I understand the ratio is currently 5-1 US dollar. Understand the concept. But if I say I have R$1, is that the same thing as saying I have $1 in the United States? Or if I say I have R$100, is that the same thing as saying $100 in the United States? Very interesting. Brazil Vibes, that's a very interesting discussion because this would represent like two different takes or two different perspectives on how those two different currencies connect to each other, right? The way that I see, right, I personally see, is that you are right. Like, I mean, if I have R$100, is more equivalent to someone having $100 in the US, right? Like a Brazilian with R$100 in their pocket is going to be equivalent to a US citizen with $100 in their pocket, right? Many people, they are going to do the conversion and say, well, it's not exactly the case. So a U.S. citizen with $100 in their pocket should be the same thing as a Brazilian with 500 reais. But when you look at how much money a Brazilian makes, you're going to see that this analogy, right, like 100 for 100 is going to make more sense, in my opinion, right? That's another reason why so many people from the United States, they are going to invest in Brazil, because from this perspective, from this, let's say, a take, you are actually multiplying your investments by 5, right? Like you bring in a strong currency from abroad, and then, this money is going to buy a lot, right? I had a consultation with, like a client. I don't recall if it was, I think it was yesterday. Yes, and he was just amazed. Like he was in the Northeast, and he was saying, listen, it's hard to believe how much I can buy with $150,000, right? Like with $150,000 in the US, what you're gonna buy? You're not gonna buy much, right? You're not gonna buy a condo in Florida. You're not gonna buy a house, I don't know, like even in the middle of the country. We're not even talking about New York and California. We're just talking about anywhere, right? And this same 150,000 US dollars, when you go to the northeast of Brazil, you can buy amazing properties, right? And I'm really talking amazing properties. I'm not just talking about condos. I'm talking particularly if you live like the capitals, right? Like, so if you are in Fortaleza, and if you drive like 50 minutes to the east, right, you're gonna find this beautiful city called Beberibe, right? I'm gonna write the name over here, Beberibe, Ceará. So that's about an hour from Fortaleza. It depends on how fast you drive. Usually it takes me an hour and a half, but other people, they get there like in 50 minutes. It's actually difficult for you to find the property selling for 150,000 US dollars because that's so much money from the local perspective, right? So, yes, Brazil vibes. Yes, I like this analogy, of understanding that a U.S. citizen with $100 US in their pocket is going to be somewhat equivalent to a Brazilian with 100 reais in their pocket in terms of purchase power. And that's why, again, U.S. citizens, when they come to Brazil, like they're really impressed by the quality of life they can have. Another take on that, very specific to our firm, like we are very proud to serve many people from the army, right? Like many people who end up getting disability from the VA, and if you think about the money that they get, is potentially not enough for them to have a comfort living, for instance, in Los Angeles or New York. But if they take that money and they come to Brazil, they're going to live like kings, right? So that's pretty much the dynamic between those currencies, Brazil vibes. I think that's what you're talking about. Really nice point. All right, Matt Gaines, we need to find a realtor in Rio Grande do Sul who's English, fluent in English. Do you have any suggestions? Matt, so I don't know, right? Like, I mean, typically there is a lot of, there is more activity in Santa Catarina, which is a neighboring state. And then we do have like, a few realtors who are fluent in English. But what I can do is to share information about the RE/MAX nomad states, right? Like they specialize in assisting people with properties, and they are fluent in English, right? And that reminds me, I'm gonna run here, like a short ad we have for RE/MAX, and then at the end of this video, you can copy the contact information, right? So they can certainly assist you in Rio Grande do Sul, even though they are locals to Rio de Janeiro. But because they work in the RE/MAX platform, they have access to the entire RE/MAX portfolio throughout Brazil, right? So, in other words, if you have like a type of a wish list, you can share with them, and then they can, get you a short list for you to pursue, right? So this is the ad, as you can see, starts focused on Rio de Janeiro, right? But like I said, it is, they have been assisting, right? Like some of our clients throughout the country. This is the email address that you can use. There is a WhatsApp number as well over there, so you can reach out either via email or you can reach out by WhatsApp. You guys probably know like WhatsApp is huge in Brazil, right? Like it's so big to a point in which, for instance, like we have court cases, and many times you're going to communicate with the courts through WhatsApp, believe it or not, right? Like, so if you try to call, they don't take the call. But if you send a message over WhatsApp, yes, they are going to answer your message over WhatsApp. So, for those of you who have been traveling to Brazil, two very interesting cultural phenomena, if you will, are going to be WhatsApp and Pix, right? They are absolutely Brazilian traits like of communication. WhatsApp is just like, the way of communicating nowadays in Brazil, and Pix is the way of paying for everything that you want to buy in Brazil. All right, so I hope that was helpful. All right, breakdown. I was looking at places in Central which are cheaper. Yes, breakdown. I like Central a lot, right? And you're probably talking about Santa Teresa, right? Because Central is more like business oriented, even though nowadays you can find many buildings that are being converted, right? Like they were purely business, let's say 5 years ago, and now they are accepting residential tenants or buyers. It's something very interesting because typically, apartments in Central, they are substantially cheaper, right? Like, it's not unusual for you to find an apartment in Central, Rio de Janeiro downtown, for something like, 200,000 reais. So we're talking about 40,000 US dollars, right? So of course is much cheaper than what you would pay for an apartment in Zona Sul of Rio de Janeiro, Copacabana, or Barra da Tijuca, or pretty much anywhere else. So I agree. Central is a bargain, right? Like is a great opportunity. But of course, Central is not by the beach. But without, rush hour, you could get to a beach, I don't know, like in 20, 30 minutes, right? So very interesting. It's not that common. It's not that common breakdown, but I do like Central a lot. And that's where we actually have our main office, right? Like our main office is in downtown Rio de Janeiro. And in our building, it's just like, business, business tenants. But a few blocks from our, area, you would find, those kind of mixed use buildings and condominiums. All right. So there you go. Very interesting take. All right. Salar Ahmed. Hello from Germany. Hello, Salar. Welcome to the live. Virgilio, greetings from the Dominican Republic. Welcome, Virgilio. Good morning. Here's my one question. Is it possible to become a Brazilian citizen by união estável and not be responsible for paying taxes on foreign public pensions in Brazil? Virgilio, very difficult to give you a yes or no. That would potentially become a consultation, something that we cannot do live as per the, a bar association, but I can give you some like a cup of facts so you can, maybe advance your understanding of taxation in Brazil. So the two main triggers for foreign citizens in Brazil to become a tax resident are going to be either once they secure permanent residency, and the second trigger is going to be when they exceed 183 days in Brazil for any given 365 days. And pay attention to this. It's not like on a calendar year basis. So we're not talking about January the 1st to December the 31st. We're talking about a rolling or a moving bracket trying to catch you, right? So that's how it works. And if you exceed 183 days, meaning you've been for 184 days during this 365 period, you become a tax resident, all right? Now, in terms of getting a união estável, the união estável, similar to marriage, right? This alone may not necessarily trigger the tax residency, right? But if you apply for the residency, for sure, this would trigger the tax residency. All right, Virgilio, I hope that was helpful. Team, many thanks. That's really helpful. Thank you for participating, team. Travel Jones, am I able to get a Pix account as a foreigner? Do I need a Brazilian bank account for this? Travel Jones, yes, you need a Brazilian bank account, right? There are some apps nowadays trying to offer you the Pix feature, even if you have an account from abroad. At least so far, we never had enough positive feedback to share about any of those apps, right? Like, so traditionally, whenever we have a client who wanna secure a bank account in Brazil before they become a resident, we're gonna assist them with opening a non-resident bank account, right? And a very typical bank for that purpose would be Banco Rendimento, right? I'm sure half of you know about Banco Rendimento. Banco Rendimento and many others, right? It's not just them, like many others, they offer bank accounts in which you can send funds, let's say from the United States, so you're going to fund your Brazilian bank account from abroad. And because this bank account is for non-residents, they are not going to require your resident card, meaning that you can open the account with just a passport. Once you have this account, functional, working, you can then use the funds that you have in the account to pay Brazilians with Pix. Okay, it doesn't get you like a debit card. It's more like an app-like type of solution. And the non-resident bank accounts, typically, they are very limited. Okay, so the normal or the standard bank account, you should be able to get one once you become a resident in Brazil and once you have the resident card. Until then, the only bank account that you're going to be able to open is this specific type, the non-resident bank account, okay? We have a lot of information about this bank account. Sharing real quick over here. Right, so if you come to our website, and you're going to see, just do none, and then you're going to see the non-resident bank account, okay? And then you're going to have more information about how this works. You're going to see the Pix, access to Pix, okay? So you can pay, the Pix, you can pay the boletos. Boletos are a type of payment coupon that people, give you, let's say if you have an apartment, to pay the HOA fees, typically you're going to receive this payment coupon that you're going to use to pay, right? So, those non-resident bank accounts, they do give you such, features. And we also have many answers to the most common questions. For instance, like what are the documents that you need to present when opening such bank account? And here you're going to find a list of the documents required. All right, let's see what else. All right, Brazil Vibes, $10. Thank you so much, Brazil Vibes. Brazil Vibes is buying me lunch today. I really appreciate the gesture, and I'm really happy whenever you guys send me some tip so I can have my lunch on you, right? All right, Brazil Vibes, thank you, but I'm trying to understand the Brazilian currency as a single unit. Is $1 like saying I have $1 in the United States? If my question is not clear, no worries, thank you. As a single unit, all right. Yes, I mean, again, Brazil Vibes, like there are two takes on it, right? Like one take is for you to be very precise, accurate, and then if you have $1 in Brazil, if you're going to, this more accurate perspective, the currency exchange perspective, if you say that you have 1 real in your pocket, you actually have 20 cents of a US dollar, right? Like this is like when you apply the currency exchange, when you convert the currencies, right? Now, there is a different take on it when you actually see how much money we Brazilians get on a monthly basis and how much money US citizens get on a monthly basis. When you compare, salaries, for instance, and you don't do the conversion, what you're gonna realize is that potentially, let's say if someone is making 5,000 US dollars a month in salary or 10,000 US dollars a month in salary, potentially a counterparty in Brazil is going to be making, guess how much? Maybe 5,000 reais or 10,000 reais, meaning that there is no conversion, right? Like, so this is another take. Is not a mathematical take, is more like a social perspective on how difficult it is for Brazilians to make money. And from that perspective, I would say, like 1 real in my pocket is potentially just like $1 in your pocket. All right. Let me know if that's not the answer you're looking for, Brazil Vibes, and we can further elaborate on that. But what I like about your question is that it goes beyond this kind of, a mechanical, automated thinking that, all right, like if I have $1, it's just the same as 5 reais. Yes, based on currency exchange, that's how it works. But when you think about the social dynamics, about how difficult it is for Brazilians to make money, is not a matter of purely converting the money, but is also a matter of understanding how much money Brazilians make in the first place. Salar, greetings, Kay, greetings from London. How much is a consultation moving from London to Rio in October? Kay, good question. Like we have a detailed information on the consultations in our website. Typically, the consultations are going to range from 50 US dollars for something very specific, like if you just have questions about the digital nomad, to 150 US dollars if you want to discuss about pretty much any type of immigration route that you could have access to, all right? And whenever you hire our services, the fee that you pay for the consultation can be used as a credit towards the actual service, okay? Very important for you to understand that in Brazil, the Bar Association does not allow any lawyer or law firm to offer anything for free, right? Like this is actually prohibited by the Bar Association, right? So if you see someone offering, something free, be concerned about that because, they are a kind of, not following the code of ethics of our profession. And that's what we do. We don't offer like free consultations, but we try to, accommodate the expectation of our clients by, using the amount that they paid for the consultation as a credit towards the service that they are going to hire. Meaning that if you hire us to help you with your immigration journey down the line, the amount that you paid for the consultation is going to be applied as a credit. All right. Virgilio, many thanks. Thank you, Virgilio, for showing up. Travel John is right on. Thank you. Thank you, Travel Jones, for showing up today. Brazil Vibes, it is clear. Thank you. I'm trying to understand before currency exchange. Thank you. Absolutely. Different takes, different perspectives, Brazil Vibes. Thank you for asking. Christopher, the money topic was such a good one. You see what I'm saying, Brazil Vibes? Thank you for sharing, Christopher. I'm only caught the tail end, but I'm so glad that it came up here. Exactly. Travel Jones, having done a consultation, it's well worth it, everyone. Thank you for sharing, Travel Jones. Yes, exactly. In a consultation, like we can have, like a more focused a conversation about your goals, and naturally not only a conversation, but giving your, your goals and your background and your facts potentially find the best routes that you can follow, potentially saving you, from a lot of trouble and time wasted, right? Something that we were discussing yesterday with a client, actually with a couple of clients, unfortunately, particularly when you're buying a property in Brazil, you are always running a risk of losing your shirt, right? And then people ask, well, if I don't hire a lawyer, it means I'm going to be, I'm going to be robbed, I'm going to lose my money. And I say, listen, it's not always the case, right? Like if you work, for instance, with the RE/MAX agency that we typically recommend to clients, they try to follow, very, serious standards in terms of the type of property that they are bringing to the market. They also respect the timeline, from our clients. So there are ways for you to buy a property. You don't necessarily need to have a lawyer. If you are using a very reputable a real estate agency, right? But when you use a lawyer, particularly a law firm that is that has been serving, like an international community for decades, it does help us, envision all the trouble that could happen, and guide you through the safest path that we can find for your goals. All right, so that's appreciated, Travel Jones. Thank you for sharing that. Matt Gaines, we agree with Travel Jones. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the support. Let's take a look at what else we have over here. All right, that's a question from our backlog, right? All right, I am from the U.S. and I have a Brazilian partner, and my Brazilian partner actually has a visitor visa. Do we need to apply for the green card from Brazil, or can we apply for the green card while in the U.S.? Right, so your Brazilian partner, right? Assuming that you guys are married, we spoke about união estável, which is somewhat translated as civil union. If you have a civil union in Brazil, guess what? The United States is not going to recognize. So the first thing you would be for you to have a fully fledged marriage. Once you have a marriage, yes, you can apply for a green card for your Brazilian spouse, either in Brazil or the United States. Okay, there is a concern, like when the Brazilian Brazilian spouse is gonna fly to the U.S. with you. And if you say, well, we're coming here because we're going to apply for a green card, guess what? He's not going to be allowed to enter the country because his visa is a visitor visa, right? So when you're entering, that's absolutely key for the United States immigration. But interesting that's not the same case for the Brazilian and the Portuguese ones. But for the United States, it's all about the intent. So if you guys are planning to move to the U.S. and then apply for the green card from there, from a technical perspective, the tourist visa is not correct, because the tourist visa is for people who have an intent of doing tourism in the United States, right, and not marrying and securing permanent residency, right? So that's a kind of tricky pathway. But let's say in theory, right, if it happens for you guys to travel to the United States to enjoy, a 3-month vacation, and then eventually you say, listen, this has been working so nicely that we want to stay for longer. At that point, yes, maybe you have a different intent from the intent that you had before. And at that point, you could potentially apply for the green card from within the United States, and then apply for something that we call adjustment of status, meaning that your status is like a visitor, but now that you are married to a U.S. citizen and you are applying for the permanent residence in the U.S., you are basically asking the government to allow you to remain in the U.S. During the waiting period of time, right? So it's called the adjustment of status. Another nice thing about the adjustment of status is that typically is going to allow you to also petition for an authorization of work for your Brazilian spouse even before the permanent residency is granted, and the foundation here is that nobody can wait for I don't know like a year until the permanent residency is approved. So in a few months, typically, the U.S. administration is going to grant this work permit to the Brazilian spouse, so the Brazilian spouse can work in the meantime. All right. I hope that was helpful. And Christopher, I am born in the U.S., currently naturalized and living in Ecuador. I have a passive income of $5,000 per month. Can I and my União Estável Ecuadorian wife qualify the 7 visa in Portugal, or do we have to be married? That's the same thing typically, Christopher. Like the União Estável, if it is just a União Estável from Ecuador, is not recognized in Portugal. Now, there is a kind of a workaround, and for this workaround to work, or for us or for me to tell you that this is going to work, like we need to look at the paperwork. But depending on the type of União Estável and for how long you've been together, you may register this União Estável in Portugal. And once Portugal has this União Estável recorded in Portugal, then it recognizes the right for your partner to apply with you under the D7. Okay, so that would be part of the strategy to make this União Estável recognized by Portugal. All right, and then you could both apply for the D7. The D7 has a really low requirement because it gotta be passive income. So from the Portuguese perspective, it's not like a salary that you could be gaining, that you could be getting today, and maybe not like 60 days down the line. By passive income, they expect something like if you have a house, you're renting out this house, and the lease is getting you, I don't know, like $2,000, right? So they understand, well, if Christopher owns this house, 60 days down the line, he's going to still own this house, right? Like in theory. And therefore, they see this type of income as very consistent. Nowadays, the requirement is a single minimum wage from Portugal, which if you convert is going to be around $1,000, right? So again, the requirement is pretty low. The $1,000 is going to be the requirement for the first applicant. The second applicant is going to be actually 50%, right? And on top of that, you need to make a deposit, right? So the monthly amount is not meaningful, but you also need to deposit 12 months worth of the minimum wage in a Portuguese bank before you have your interview for the D7, all right? For those of you who don't know, the D7 is the passive income visa for Portugal. It's also known as the Portuguese retirement visa, all right? And different from Brazil, you can never apply directly in Portugal, right? Like in Brazil, most of our clients, they actually apply for the retirement visa. It's actually a residency they apply when physically in Brazil, and that's not the case with Portugal. Portugal does not allow you to apply for the D7 while you're in Portugal, meaning if you are in Portugal and you're enjoying the country, you say, well, I want to stay, guess what? You need to go back to the United States, or in Christopher's case, go back to Ecuador and then apply from there until you have the interview and the visa, and then you can re-enter Portugal under the D7 visa. Very interesting change of subjects. Good to discuss Portugal every now and then, Christopher. Donna Lee, good afternoon, Luciano. It has been a while, Donna. So good to see you over here. Good afternoon, everyone. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Donna. Thank you for looking after us. Yes, if you are enjoying the live stream, do us a favor. Click on the like button, subscribe, and follow us for more content. When you do so, you help our business and you help other people just like you to find our content. Appreciate, Donna. And let me ask you, Donna, how is the weather? You know, I'm always interested in your journey regarding the weather, right? Like, let me know. I've been to, and I'm not telling where Donna is, right? Like, I cannot share this type of information. But I went to Florianopolis. It was actually a couple of weeks ago. I think I left on the 31st. I went to Santa Catarina. I was in Florianopolis, right? And the difference in temperature is so noticeable, right? When you compare, you know, like Florianopolis to São Paulo, and when you compare São Paulo to Rio de Janeiro, you can actually feel, you know, the change in temperature, right? So naturally, right, like the further you go south in Brazil, like the colder it's going to be, and particularly in the states of Rio Grande do Sul and Santa Catarina, it does get really, really, you know, cold in the winter, not by U.S. standards, right? Like, I'm not saying by U.S. standards, but in Rio Grande do Sul, it's very common for you to, you know, have snow. The problem that I see, but it is kind of changing nowadays, is that there is no heating system. Like, heating systems, they are not typical of the Brazilian culture, right? So I like to share this story, right? When I was in my 20s, I went to visit a friend in, you know, it was close to Porto Alegre. It was actually Bento Gonçalves, the city of Bento Gonçalves. And I was planning to stay there for a week, but, you know, after 3 days of misery in terms of how cold it was, because there was no heating system, right? Like, so eventually it does not matter how many layers of clothes you're wearing, you are kind of, you know, freezing. And so 3 days down the line, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to São Paulo. And then that was it. Like, I think, you know, I had you know, like a consulting business back then. And I said, well, there is some business I need to attend. And then I just said goodbye. And I came back from Bento Gonçalves to São Paulo 3 days down the line. But yes, so Donna says, getting warmer finally. Good for you, Donna. Now you're going to have a blast. Are you going to do stuff outdoors? Like, are you making friends over there? How is life going for you, Donna? I can tell just by your communication that you're very happy, and I'm very pleased to see so. All right. All right. Solar Ahmad, I have a question about taxation as a Brazilian citizen. Do I have to pay taxes on my worldwide income to Brazil if I live outside of Brazil, just like us, United States? All right, Solar, that's not going to be a consultation. That's more like a general feature of our taxation system. So yes, I can talk about that with you. And the way it works is like this. And at least nowadays, right? Because guess what? The current federal administration, they are trying to change that to work just like the United States. But I can tell you, they are not going to succeed, right? Because there is this long time tradition in Brazil that if you are leaving the country on a permanent basis, right? Like, so if you're going to live abroad and you are a Brazilian, you can file the so-called declaração de saída definitiva, right? Which would roughly translate as a tax exit declaration. It's actually done in two stages, and of course you need to hire a tax professional to further advise you on that and to help you file the two different forms that you need to file. But Salar, you can turn it off, right? So yes, I know in the United States there is no turning off taxation. You could be living in Mars forever. They don't care. The United States is going to want, a piece of your global income. But Brazil, as long as you're living abroad, meaning you're not living in Brazil, and you do file correctly the tax exit papers, guess what? Yes, you can turn off the switch on your global income. Naturally, if you still have income in Brazil, guess what? You need to pay taxes in Brazil, even if you're living abroad, right? So let's assume if you have like a rental property and now you're living in Europe, right? So naturally, Brazil will charge you taxes for that particular stream of income, but Brazil is not gonna bother you, is not gonna chase you for taxes over the income that you're getting from Europe. Again, as long as you're not living in Brazil, as long as you file the tax exits, and as long as you do follow some other rules, right? One rule that is typically overlooked by Brazilians is that, like, if you are living abroad, if you filed the tax exit, you shouldn't have a regular bank account, right? Because in Brazil, the regular bank account is designed for tax residents. If you left the country, if you filed for the tax exit, the correct account for you to use is the non-resident bank account. That's the same bank account we were talking about at the beginning of our live stream. All right, but very interesting question. Thank you for asking, Solar. All right, Dragon, bom dia, Luciano. Thank you, Oliveira Lawyers, for helping me get my digital nomad. So excited. Good to know, Dragon. I hope you are having a blast in Brazil. How is your journey going, Dragon? And I know I spoke with Thales at our firm, and he said they're trying to organize a visit of Dragon to our office. For those of you who don't know, Dragon, he's a musician, so he was willing to play a little bit for us, sax, right? Not surprisingly. And we are trying to organize something like towards the end of the day, so we can probably have some wine and cheese. And as you can see, we are always happy to meet our clients at the firm. There you go, Sax. So good to see you over here. All right, Donnelly, in regards to the English realtor, I used Luciano's teams for the purchase. They translated everything for my home purchase. Exactly, Donna. Thank you so much for sharing, right? Like, I cannot share by myself, but you are welcome to share. And yes, that's typically how we work. We handle, right, like the entire process on your behalf. We have a kind of, study here at the firm, and we probably have like, between 250 and 300 activities during the course of a purchase in Brazil. And I know it may sound like, an exaggeration, but the problem in Brazil is we don't have a title insurance, right? Meaning if you buy a bad title property, you are on your own. And second, you don't have an escrow, meaning that if you pay the money to someone and this person doesn't sign the deed of sale, you are in trouble, right? Like, I mean, you can try to sue the person and have a judge adjudicating or enforcing the transfer, but these are all things you want to stay away, right? So when you work with us, we're going to take you by the hand, and during the course of many months, right, I think other of you, I'm not going to say names, but some of you can attest to that. It typically takes much longer than what one would expect. It does take a lot of time and energy. Very often, right, like Brazilian owners, like they don't take good care of, either their taxes, or they are not keeping the property title in a good shape. Sometimes they are going to build something, they are not recording on the title. Sometimes they do record, but record incorrectly. So, most of the time there is something that needs to be straightened out during the course of the acquisition. And when you hire our services, guess what? We're going to be there, making sure that everything is straight, everything is going to work as it should. If you are on your own, with just a realtor, many times, the realtor naturally doesn't even understand those nuances, and they are just going to try to get a transaction done as quickly as possible so they can get their commission. No blame on that, but they are typically unaware of some concerns that we typically address in our services, right? So thank you for sharing, Donna. Very generous of you. All right, Dragon, the weather right now is actually perfect for me. I'm often outside in shorts and short sleeves. I'm really standing out. All right, I hear you, Dragon. I hear you. And good to know that you're having a blast. Matt Gaines, thank you, Don. Sex Dragon, things are going well. I'm going to play a little concert for your team on Friday. Yes, you'll be sax and guitar. Yeah, so that's so cool, Dragon. Thank you for letting me know. I'm gonna have someone recording a like a small snippet. And if you allow us, of course, right? Like you are the musician, if you allow us to, record, then maybe we can we can play here at the live stream potentially next week, right? And by the way, we're gonna have a live stream this Sunday. It was previously scheduled for the 21st, but we are gonna do this one on the 14th, right? So we had this live stream on I'm not sure if it was, I think it was on the 31st of August, right? So we're gonna have one on the 14th, and what we are trying to do here is to get a couple of live streams on Sundays, because not all of you are available, right, during weekdays. So the idea is to have a weekday live stream more often, and at least a couple of Sundays, so other people can join us as well. Salar, thank you very much. You're welcome, Salar. Thank you for sharing this interesting question. Double G, hi Luciano, thank you for the live stream. You're welcome, Double. Good to see you over here. Outside of pensions and Social Security, have you seen other types of income towards the $2,000 per month for the retirement visa, dividends, real estate? Double G. So the way we see the Brazil retirement visa, it works like this, right? And our interpretation has been tested, I would say, by the Brazilian immigration so many times, right? Like we have a large number of retirement visas handled here at the firm. At any given time, we have a bunch being processed. And I can tell you, the Brazilian government wants typical traditional retirement income, right? So we're not talking about dividends. We're not talking about property, rental property. We're not talking about intellectual property. We're not talking about, any of those other things, right? We're talking about Social Security. We're going to be talking about pension. We're going to be talking about disability. Okay, and these are the most traditional ones. These are the ones that whenever we see, we say, listen, you are gold. Don't worry about the income, right? And then there is a second tier, which in my opinion is going to be 401k, Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, and annuities, right? So this is the second tier, in my opinion. They are good. We don't offer 100%, guarantee that they are compliant, but they are typically seen as good retirement income. Okay, and then we have the third tier, which is going to be those things that we spoke about, like rental property, dividends, IP, and other types of incomes, right? And the third tier, Double G, is actually intended to help you achieve the 2,000 goalpost. Okay, so most of your income, and that's like how the language from the regulation goes. Most of the income should come from traditional retirement income, and if you don't get to the 2,000, the Brazilian government is going to allow you to add something else that's not traditional retirement income to help you get to the 2000 goal, right? And then if you ask me, all right, but how much can that be? Listen, the regulation doesn't have examples and doesn't have definite language on how much it should be, but the commanding word over here is most, right? So in my opinion, most means if you have $1,001 of traditional retirement income, it means that the 999 could be provided through a second or third tier retirement income, right? So if you have $1,001 in Social Security from the United States or any other country, the 999 could be presented through a rental property, dividends, right, interest, and any other type of passive income that you can show. All right, I hope that was helpful, Double G. Dragon, yes, recording using a clip for promo purposes will be fine. I will see then Friday. Thanks again for all you have done. So happy I worked with your team. Have a good day and rest of your week. Such kind words, Dragon. I cannot read too much of this stuff, otherwise I get emotional, all right? But I want to say thank you to everyone. I want to say thank you to all these participations, very interesting participations today. And don't forget to join us on Sunday. On Sundays, we meet at 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time. So it's a bit later in the day because it's a Sunday, right? But I would love to see you guys over here and wishing you all a blessed rest of your Wednesday.